Happy hump day, you crazy kids. It's Wednesday, February 17, 2021, and you're watching the Daily Mix TV. Hi, my name is Sean Patrick Hillman. No, I did not slip and fall and hurt my head. The black mark on my forehead means that it's Ash Wednesday. It is the highest holy season for Christians, as it is the beginning of Lent. It ends on Easter Sunday. So for the next 40 days and 40 nights, anyone who is a practicing Catholic or a Christian, if you've given something up for Lent, such as I have, like Diet Coke and candy, it's got to be something you really care about, something that you really enjoy, and that really is a sacrifice for you. And anybody who knows me knows how addicted to Diet Coke I actually am. So for the next 40 days and 40 nights, I get to suffer, happily so to some degree, I suppose. But remember that during Lent, you're not allowed to have meat on Fridays, and you must fast on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. So, good luck to all of you. Hopefully the next 40 days and 40 nights goes by very quickly. On to the news. Retail sales skyrocketed by over 5% last month as the latest round in stimulus checks and a loosening of business restrictions drove consumer spending. The surge in spending was the biggest in just over 7 months after a resurgence of COVID infections hampered holiday sales in December. Yes, spending last month increased across all major categories compared with December, but the biggest gains, and this is no surprise, came in online sales. That was followed by food services and bars. Now, interestingly enough, manufacturing output rose for a fourth straight month in January as factories worked to catch up with demand from both the core of the pandemic last summer and in the fall, as well as the holiday sales season. So we've heard rumblings about product shortages and things like that. In 99% of the cases, I can tell you that all of that was false. You know, you had issues in terms of distribution and getting paper goods like paper towels and toilet paper out there. And yes, there was a small product shortage for a very short period of time because there was a run on toilet paper, a run on, disinfecting wipes, those kinds of things. And whenever you've got, in your scale of manufacturing, whenever you've got a perceived demand coming up, you ramp up your manufacturing. However, no one could have foreseen the run on toilet paper and disinfecting wipes that we saw last spring and certainly through the summer. So believe it or not, companies like Clorox are still playing catch up. The product's there. It's in the pipeline. It's just a matter of getting it into distribution and getting it into those stores. So bear with them. It will happen. What's interesting about this story, though, is that you've got a 5% increase in a month where typically you see a lot of losses and lack of spending and things like that. The stimulus package was a big part of that. So when you factor in that you're getting $600 from the federal government, the problem is a lot of people aren't paying their bills with that money. They're buying other things. That's going to come back and bite them in the butt later on. But the challenge that I have with this is wondering what's going to happen in February, considering that it looked like sales for President's Day sales and Valentine's Day were soft. So we'll keep an eye on that one for you and circle back. All right, Laderach, the chocolatier from Switzerland, is expanding its U.S. footprint. The family-owned Switzerland-based company has signed an asset purchase agreement allowing it to take over the leases of 34 Godiva locations across the country. Laderach and Godiva agreed to not disclose any of the conditions of the agreement, but Laderach plans to announce the locations of those 34 stores, which are expected to open by the end of summer, if not sooner. Now, as has been reported before, Godiva last month announced that it planned to close or sell all of its 128 brick-and-mortar locations in the U.S. to focus on online and retail partner sales. Now, the closures and sales are expected to be completed by the end of next month, March. In December, Laderach opened its 100th store. They had a second store in Manhattan. It was a flagship on 5th, if I remember correctly. It's a 2,500 square foot store. It's actually very attractive. It's got a rotating cocoa bean sculpture featuring real chocolate, which is kind of cool, so you should check that out. This month, though, the company opened a location in Union Square in D.C., and it's also got a location at American Dream, that mega mall out in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Now, Laderach's artisanal chocolates are produced exclusively in Switzerland, and they're sold, through their own stores in Switzerland, Germany, the UK, US, and Canada, and then through sales partners in the Middle East and Asia. So why is this important? All right. Godiva, being an iconic brand, a legendary name, closing all of its doors in the US to focus on online and partner sales distribution. That unto itself is interesting and signals that there may be a bigger problem inside Godiva than we are aware of. The fact that Laderach has come in and acquired these 34 leases is not a surprise to me, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who follows this space. When you get into retail and you get into confections and you get into chocolatiers like Maison du Chocolat or certainly Laderach or Godiva, when you look at those things and you understand the dynamic of what's going on in the space, chocolate prices are going up for a whole lot of reasons. They're going to go up even further. And part of that is because of the decision by the Biden administration to kill the Keystone Pipeline, because that means that oil costs domestically are going to go up because we have to acquire it from foreign interests. And no, this is not a political statement. Please don't get me wrong. The reality is when oil prices go up, food costs go up. Why? Because of distribution and trucking. Think about this. When food is on a farm and it gets out to a distributor, that distributor then has to truck that produce into a grocery store, right? From a distribution warehouse into a grocery store. They factor in the cost of that service and the fuel that they use into the pricing, which then gets reflected back to the farm, which then gets reflected back to the grocery store in terms of those costs. So that number is going up. The same is true of chocolate. Remember that, even though you can smell it in the store and all of those things, the reality is that chocolate, that cocoa bean, needs to get to the store somehow, and that's by trucking. So that means their prices are going to go up, and you're going to start to see that even more at the grocery store, let alone at a retailer like a Laderach or any of those guys. Seeing chocolate prices go up and now hearing that Laderach is opening so many more doors, it's good from a retail perspective. I just hope that their pricing schematic, their offering, is approachable to a larger audience. Certainly a la what, not as mass market as a Hershey's or a Cadbury, but certainly not as prestige as, let's say, a Maison du Chocolat, where your prices are fairly high. So only time will tell. We'll keep an eye on it for you and let you know. GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare's Tums brand is expanding its offerings to meet consumer demand for naturally sourced products. The company is rolling out Tums Naturals, an antacid that is free of artificial flavors and dyes, while offering multi-symptom relief of acid indigestion, sour stomach, and heartburn. Now, this is where research can play a big role in product dev. When you're developing a product, okay, more often than not, it's based on a hunch or an assumption that you have about consumer spending or consumer behavior pattern that you believe is starting to trend. So when that happens, you need to deploy research to find out if it's true and how to capitalize on it. So in this case, the company noted that research has found that an increasing number of consumers prefer products with natural ingredients, but they can't find it from brands that they trust. So this insight drove Tums to adapt its product to meet consumer demand while still delivering heartburn relief. Tums Naturals are sold in 2 fruity flavor combinations, black cherry and watermelon, as well as coconut and pineapple. Both feature calcium carbonate as an active ingredient and are also free of GMOs and gluten. The products have rolled out in different sizes and packaging, which we all know from Tums, and they're available at Chain Drug nationwide. Oh man, I really don't know how to feel about this story. Apple just landed a massive victory. In a case that sparked controversy in the tech domain, the North Dakota State Senate voted down legislation that would have forced app stores to let software developers use their own payment processing software. Other states, including Arizona and Georgia, have proposed similar bills in an attempt to limit the power of companies like Apple and Google. Critics of these efforts argue that they would destroy the iPhone as you know it, and that's a direct quote. While those pushing for regulation, which is led by, unfortunately, Fortnite's creator Epic Games, which Apple got into a pissing contest with last year, claim Apple's policies stifle innovation and subject mobile developers to crippling restrictions. Okay. Whew, that's a big one. Let's take this step by step. When you're a developer, an app developer, you have a responsibility to Apple, to Google, whatever app store you're selling through. Their payment processing software is what needs to be used. It's their channel, it's their distribution, it's their devices, at least their brand devices, that you're sending your app to. So it's like demanding that a grocery store not charge you stocking fees. Sorry, that's not how this works. That's not how business and distribution works. Epic Games is upset because Apple got into it with them last year, and now this is them trying to capitalize and get revenge. There is no way that you can possibly claim and prove that Apple's policies for their App Store is stifling innovation. Look at the last decade. Almost every major innovation in mobile technology, in internet, has been developed by Apple. Why? Because they are the top dog. And when you get into what's going on right now with this kind of legislation, it is dangerous. I don't think that companies like Google and Facebook and even Apple should have the power that they have. However, going after a company, it's one thing when you're talking about Google and Facebook because they're controlling a message. Apple doesn't have its own social network. Apple doesn't play the political game that way. They never have. They've never been that company. So for a company like Epic Games to do this, it's all about sour apples at this point. Apple, from my perspective, should have its powers limited, not because of the App Store, but because of the amazing amount of revenue that they're reaping and not being taxed on it appropriately because of loopholes. And that's a whole other ball of wax that I'm not going to get into today. But when you get into the App Store, again, let's use the grocery store as an example. You've got vendor A that is selling bread, okay? The grocery store buys the bread and sells it for a profit, right? Okay. When you've got soft goods like soft drinks and things like that, you're literally selling through the store's property. So in this case, Epic Games is selling Fortnite through Apple's App Store. So they feel that they should be able to collect the money on their own and not be tied to Apple's payment system. Sorry, folks, that's not how the free market works, and that's certainly not how capitalism works. So Apple, stick to your guns, guys. Tim Cook, I really hope that you guys continue to fight this, because otherwise it's just going to continue to get completely out of hand. All right. After yesterday's episode aired, I received a couple of hundred emails asking about HILLBITES. All right. I guess I can let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. So, as many of you know, I've been cooking and barbecuing and baking since I was a little boy. Over the years, so many have asked me why I don't open a restaurant or a bar or a food truck, those kinds of things. Of course, leave it to my wife, Kylie, to push me over the edge to do it, so to speak. So in 2 weeks, I am opening an online-only bakery called HILLBITES. It's offering a limited selection of baked goods. I believe we've got 36 recipes going out the door on, I believe it's March 5th is when we're officially launching. We're going to look to expand into other food offerings later this year and eventually open a storefront. In the meantime, take a look at some of these things that you can look forward to ordering on HILLBITES.com. So there's the Dreamy Creamy Fudge Brownie, and Caramel Slice, which is just a huge Aussie and British baked good. Then you've got pound cake, you've got cookies, Danish cream, dream cake, and so on. one of the reasons why I created HILLBITES, believe it or not, was based on pound cake. Pound cakes are so rich and so dense, and if they're done right, they're moist and full of flavor. You know, you can't find them at a lot of bakeries anymore. You know, the cupcake craze sort of pushed pound cakes off the shelf. I gotta tell you though, every single person who's eaten one of my pound cakes is dying for more. So, you know, that's what HILLBITES is about. It's about foods that are full of flavor, no preservatives, certainly things that are delicious and set your palate on fire. You just want that culinary adventure to hit your palate at the right moment, and that's what we try and deliver. So, as an example, the Dreamy Creamy Fudge Brownies, that took 27 different attempts to get it right. It is the creamiest, fudgiest brownie you will ever have in your life. Now, I'll talk more about HILLBITES as we get closer to launch, so stay tuned to that one. In the meantime, go check out HILLBITES' Facebook and Instagram pages. All right, guys, I'm out of time. My name is Sean Patrick Hillman. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, or story ideas, please email thedailymixtv@gmail.com. We'll see you tomorrow on Thursday.